the management culture, the actual culture itself. What are the two cornerstones of the culture? In my opinion, number one is accountability. You can look at a physical arena, you could look at a football field, you could see players on the field, but what is actually happening? And what do? As you notice, they measure all athletes. Baseball, hockey, football, makes no difference. What are their factors? What are their percentages? And in our opinion, the sales department is potentially no different. The sales department accountability structure begins with a greeter, not a receptionist, a formal, professional-looking, mature greeter that meets the customers as a neutral hostess, which is a pleasant surprise for a lot of customers, records their names in most cases, and introduces them to the next product specialist, who is in a rotation, closed floor, which means who's next, other than appointments, obviously. And all customers are documented, and their progress is documented during their visit. What accountability history has documented to myself and the team? After following the progress of the customer for years, the following statistics proved to be very, very consistent. These factors came from a dealership that had many competitors, same product, in a 100-mile radius, and other products that retained number one in the world for 25 consecutive years. And what was the foundation of the sales effort? Well, the foundation guidelines were, as an example, 80% of the first-time customers would not or cannot complete the purchase naturally the first time in. 60% of the B-backs plus B-backs complete the purchase on the return. So you have a 20% first-time factor as a guideline, and you have a 60% factor for returning customers. So every third demo produces a write-up of an automobile, selection if you will. After a selection, every third formal price quotation produces a write-up. And as important as any statistic, every second customer offer produces a write-up. Now, what do we think the salespeople think of customer offers? Oh boy, this is it. Here we go. We're going to negotiate. Well, it's the place you'd like to be just before a delivery is a write-up of an offer, because that's exactly where the odds are the highest. Every second customer offer. So there's no such thing as an initial high or low offer or ridiculous offer. Those ridiculous statements made with low offers is a ridiculous position to be in, because the lower the offer, the more they're indicating they don't know what they're negotiating. So it's not a negative. But the theme that's running through the interview at this point that should be the strongest is their desire for the vehicle. So we know that they're trying, but the odds are half of them will complete it if we allow it to happen, not shut them off by saying you can't, go shop, impossible. Write their offer. All offers should be written. And then let's work the rationale of the offer for us and them to find out what's going to happen. Why is their offer such, and why is the price we're presenting the way it should be? That's when the negotiations really starts. But the point I'm making could be the most important to an organization. With a comprehensive understanding of the statistics, a ton of guesswork, rumors, we've all played this one, frustration, and BS came off on our shoulders because we finally knew what we have as a productive or non-productive day. We now knew it was not the who, it was what they experienced. Taking guesswork out of our culture and replacing it with an open blueprint, these statistics influence how the dealership approached the clients and trained new product specialists. The strongest positive influence a manager can have is within this next chapter. Because of the non-buy first visit factor, we needed to take the aggressiveness, negativeness, if you will, out and place a relaxed approach into the sales department. It wasn't whether they were a buyer or not that was the key to the interview. I'm going to say it again. It was not whether they were a buyer or not. The key is it's what they experienced while they were here. A documented selection is the number one goal. That's what makes an interview the most positive, not whether they're a buyer or not. So we found that it wasn't the who factor, but how many selections, demos, and prices, offers that were given regardless of their buying intention. We're going to stress this, regardless of their buying intention. That made a huge difference in the sales environment for both the product, the associate, and their clients. Resulting in more sales and higher elite scores. So the customers were not hearing no's. You can't. Oh my goodness. Once you come back, go get your wife and come back. That negative conversation that ran in many dealerships, believe it, was reduced. It was never eliminated. There's no perfect anything, but it became more positive. Why? Our objective was not selling and delivering. Our objective for the day was selecting. So what made the rest of the day positive? It was how many people went through these processes of selection, demos, prices, and offers on a given car that they liked, regardless of whether they were going to buy or not. So when a manager met a customer on a TO or salesman during the TO, the first question really that made a difference was, thanks for coming in, did you find one you liked? That's what really was the most important question asked. And that was the key to the culture being developed. Each product specialist's activities with his or her customer are documented. To really understand how good a product specialist can be, I certainly have to identify the effectiveness in the areas we just identified as far as product, demo, selection. We have to identify those areas of accomplishment per customer, because we can't manage what we can't see or assist in solving attitude problems that create poor techniques or habits. So looking out at people on a showroom floor doesn't mean anything. It's what happens with those people that means everything. So the reason for the documentation is to track both positive and negative trends, and then for the associate manager to be able to coach the associate on a professional level in order to improve his or her performance, confidence, and obviously income. So the view of a showroom floor or lot is the same as looking at his football field or whatever. He's watching the performance of the players. He's not caught up in the numbers of anything. Big difference. We want to focus during these sessions on the identification of the manager / coach, because everybody is, in a sense, under the influence, positive or negative, of a manager. Why? Because he pays them. That's why. So if there was no real connection, who would care what the manager said? But the manager does have the ability to really influence his people if he identifies his coaching skills. We talk about the sales desk, and as the area of influence around the manager is what we're talking about at the moment. The sales desk impact. When a person is elevated or promoted to become a manager, let's identify what they become responsible for automatically. Inventory control, certain accounting aspects, deliveries, finance, display, inventory control, paper flow of processes and deals, hiring, trades, buying, appraising, customer needs. How do we stand on the Elite score? Are we on the top, or are we not impressing customers? Sales associates' needs, obviously. Service situations. Overall advertising. So these are an example of the responsibilities automatically placed on a new or experienced sales manager. These responsibilities are natural and common. Absolutely. And in the management class that we were holding, I asked each manager how many dealerships had they worked at. And in most cases, it was more than one. What changed? Why did they leave the dealership? There could be personal reasons, we know that. But was it inventory responsibility? I don't think so. Was it their accounting? I don't think so. Delivery? No. Finance? I'm sure they were doing all they could. Display of vehicles? Inventory control? Trades? Customer needs? Service situations? Advertising? I'm sure that was all accomplished. Why? Because these functions did not need planning or more, so reacted to. They were looking for the manager, if you will. They were looking for the person who could solve the problem. That's who they were looking for. But the question is, why did they leave the dealership? What was the number one reason? It was the number of vehicles delivered, promise you. Ultimately, that's what happened. But looking back, let's ask ourselves, how often do these functions intercept the communicating, if you will, and coaching with the product specialists? If somebody came looking for the manager to solve one of these issues, Would the coaching take place first? Or would the solution to the issue take place? The solution to the issue would take place first. So if I'm a sales product specialist and I need help, how many loops do I have to jump through to get the attention of a manager is the point here. And would he really pursue that at all anyway? Or she? Coaching. What is coaching? What does it really mean? Well, coaching means that there's a person who is directing the flow of the business. Coaching. That's what's happening. That's what a coach does. And the coach, a pure coach, really cares about his or her people. And how does he handle that? A manager administers those functions that we just reviewed. But as we look at those issues that we just talked about, how much did it really do to enhance the development of a person? How much? Because a manager administers, but a coach builds people and grows. So a management function, these functions normally come under the general category of expense, but a coach comes under the development of gross and sales. There are a lot of managers, obviously, because those functions and duties have to be filled. So obviously there are a lot of managers, but are there a lot of good coaches? So when a manager is working at one of these, operating with some of these functions, is the function what's really causing the problem? No, it's business that's causing the problem. Not enough business. But how many good coaches are there? Good coaches are normally retained for a very long time. Now, when this manager developed over a period of time after being appointed a manager, of all the responsibilities that we just pointed out that are administrative, how often was the manager professionally taught to train people? How much time was spent in the training of a manager in helping the product specialist get stronger, better, be more successful for everybody in the dealership? That is the question.